You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
Project 2019. I think that's got a great ring to it, doesn't it? I say we start Project 2019 for Kamala Harris. That actually sounds pretty good. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? As always, thank you for tuning in. And as always, we have a whole lot to get into. I actually wanted to try something different for you guys. And I think it's going to be better and more effective. I actually want to try showing you the articles I'm reading and you just come with me during the show. This is me essentially doing show prep, and I'm just going to try and put it up on the screen. I've never done this before, so if we have some hiccups, I apologize, but I think it's definitely more effective you coming along with me, reading along with me on these articles. Sometimes there's photos, which, pictures say 1,000 words. So I think I'm going to try doing it like this. If it works out, we'll keep doing it like this. If it doesn't, then we'll go back to the old platform where I just read the articles myself over the microphone. It's not going to do any justice for those of you listening on the audio only podcast, but those of you watching the video platform, I think it's going to be a lot more effective and efficient. And then for the audio-only listeners, I will do my best to keep you in mind so that you get as much detail too. So first things first, I want to get into this. This is weird. I think the federal government or the FBI definitely needs to be keeping an eye on this dude. Locals outraged over despicable slaughter of 9 urban deer in Cody. So Cody residents are outraged over the despicable slaughter of 9 urban deer in the city. A 20-year-old Michigan man remains in jail, accused of killing the deer with a bow and leaving their carcasses around Cody. Like, this is nuts. So 9 carcasses? Like, really, dude? Like, this is like, to me, this is a red flag. When you have somebody slaughtering 9 deer, apparently for the fun of it, that is a little concerning. And so I want to get a little bit into this. And by the way, not DEA, but the DNR, the wildlife, DNR, I forget what it stands for, the Department of Natural Resources. They have more power than most of your police agencies, like the DEA, the FBI, like the DNR. They have a crap ton of power. I mean, they could take your guns, they could take your vehicles. They don't mess around, man, when it comes to if you're hunting with no tags, or in this guy's case, you're slaughtering deer for the fun of it and just leaving the carcasses everywhere, you're going to do some serious time. And they have a lot of power, a lot more power than I think people realize. So the suspect in the alleged archery killing spree that left 9 mule deer carcasses scattered around Cody, Michigan, was arrested, remains in the Park County Jail, and as news has spread around town, locals are outraged. Yeah, I'm from a small town in Indiana. I'm sure some of my longtime listeners know this. I'm from Martinsville, Indiana. It's a beautiful town. It's one of those old school towns that started having some modern day problems. Most of it kind of drugs. It was a bustling town with manufacturing and jobs, and it used to be a really, really beautiful town, middle class town to raise a family in. Very small. I think the population's not much, maybe in the 30,000, 40,000, maybe 50 tops. I always said to myself how beautiful the town looks. It's like something right out of a calendar or something, man. You come over 37, that's the name of the highway. You come over 37, and as you come over the top of the hill, you could see the whole town in the bottom of the valley. It just looks like something off of a movie, but that is that wasn't where I was born. I was born in Portsmouth, Virginia. My dad was in the Navy. The whole family was in the Navy, so we moved a lot. In fact, I remember moving like 9 times in 1 year. But it was just a beautiful town. Unfortunately, there was a lot of manufacturing jobs that shut down. There was a lot of big businesses and manufacturing plants there that closed down. And from there, the town really just went into the shitter, man. And then drugs started pouring in, a lot from Indianapolis. And then obviously the drugs from Indianapolis was coming from Chicago. And you know what they say about Indiana? It is the crossroads of America. And so drugs started pouring into that small little town. There's this big highway that runs right straight through it now. From what I hear, you can hardly notice it. It doesn't even look like the same town, but drugs ruined that town, unfortunately, and that's how I actually got hooked on drugs. I'm not blaming the town. I'm just saying, when you have a small little town like that, there's not much to do for kids except what? Party and drugs. And so one thing leads into another, and I was like, I got into a band. I was playing drums, and you know, when you're in a band, you know, you end up doing drugs to have fun, and then next thing you know, you're just out of the band just doing the drugs. So, but anyways, what got me on that topic was very, very big hunting town. I have several good buddies from back at home. They are hunting machines, and they would never do something like this. My friends, when they killed something, they ate it. Specifically, one of my good buddies, Jared, he was a hunting fanatic. In fact, a lot of my buddies were. I never got into hunting too much. I remember going hunting with my dad. He was a bow hunter. I had a bow and arrow. The only thing that I could not do was field dress the deer. I could not dress the deer out there in the woods. It was disgusting. I watched my dad do it once and my buddy do it once, and if you've never done it, it is just disgusting. You have to have a strong stomach. And in fact, I seen my dad gutting a deer. He was gagging a little bit because it's nasty, man. You gotta climb in there, and well, sorry for the people that are eating, but you gotta climb in there and you gotta pull all that stuff out. But they would never do something like this. They would never kill a deer and just leave it there. I think that is sad. And for this kid to kill 9 deer, I mean, that's a little concerning, man, and he is going to pay the price big time. This guy, he's screwed, man. 9 deer, I think each one is a misdemeanor. Well, here, it goes into it right here. So Joshua Tamarat Wilhauer, 20 years old, of Jensen, Michigan, is being held on a $36,000 bond, according to the Park County Sheriff's Office. He faces 9 counts of taking a big game animal without a license and 9 counts of wanton destruction of a big game animal, according to documents filed in Park County Circuit Court. Yeah, he's screwed, man. Cody's urban mule deer are beloved in the northwest Wyoming town founded by William Buffalo Bill Cody. That's why, as people learn of the mass killing of deer from the herd, mass killing of deer from the herd spreads, so does anger over the wanton killing of the big game animals. Yeah, that was a tough sentence to say. Quote, "It's a good thing I did not find this jerk first," posted one local resident to social media. Each misdemeanor charge carries a maximum penalty of 1 year in jail and a $10,000 fine. A status conference in the case is scheduled for December 11th, according to the Circuit Court's clerk office. What the charges mean: legal archery deer hunting seasons are open in much of Wyoming, including, so this isn't in Wyoming, this isn't in Michigan, this is in Wyoming. Where the hell did I get Michigan from? I don't know. So anyways, it's Wyoming. So legal archery deer hunting seasons are open in much of Wyoming, including in some urban areas, but killing deer without a license or an intent to keep the meat is illegal. Yes, very illegal, and they take this shit very seriously. At least they do in my home state, Indiana. And they do here, too. The DNR, the fishing, the wildlife management down here in Florida, if you're fishing without a fishing license, they'll take your fishing poles and you'll never get them back. They will send you home. In some cases, they can arrest you. And if you got fish on a boat, you're fishing and you have fish you're not supposed to have, they will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fishing poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate your fish. They will confiscate your poles. They will confiscate your boat. They will confiscate they can do a lot more than I think people realized. So licenses or tags issued by the Wyoming Game and Fish Department required to hunt deer in Wyoming. Hunters also are most always limited to killing only one mule deer per year, usually a buck. Regulations also require hunters to keep all edible portions of the big game animal. That includes the animal's front and rear quarters, backstrap, and tenderloin. Failure to do so amounts to wanton waste of big game animal. The deer in the Cody case were allegedly left dead where they fell with no apparent attempt to take any edible meat from the carcasses, according to court documents. Yeah, this kid's screwed. Between August 27th and September 4th, 2 bucks, 6 does, and a fawn were killed, and the carcasses were found with broadhead hunting arrow wounds, according to the affidavit written by Wyoming Game and Fish Game Warden Spencer Karstens. Most of the carcasses were found scattered around the Park County Complex property. It houses the local library and other public buildings that are surrounded by green space and some small ponds. It attracts some of Cody's sizable urban mule deer herd. So there he is. There is this douchebag that slaughtered 8 deer, 9 deer with a bow, and just for the hell of it, apparently. The alleged killing spree and hunt for a suspect during those days apparently didn't draw much attention. Several locals contacted by Cowboy State Daily on Tuesday and Wednesday said they hadn't heard of the incident. Yeah, how does this guy, I mean, apparently he was in the middle of the freaking town, man. I mean, it had a public, the Park County Complex property where the local library and other public buildings are. I mean, how does a kid get away with this? Nobody sees it? That's weird. What was he, like in a ghillie suit? Upon finding out more details, Jim Zumbo, an avid hunter and local outdoors writer who lives in Park County, called the alleged acts despicable. 9 deer, that's serious, he told Cowboy State Daily. Yeah, that's a lot of freaking deer, man. And for you to kill, I mean, that's 9 separate charges. So that is 9 misdemeanors, up to 9 years in prison. $90,000 is the max if the judge goes with the max, and he should. Listen, we've done a whole show where I told you the story about where I caught myself on fire. When you're young, you do dumb stuff. But this kid's 20 years old, man. He's not freaking 12 or 15. He's 20. So he knows better. So I don't know. I kind of think the judge should throw the book at him, man. I mean, that's ridiculous. I know they're just deer, but still, it's unfortunate, man, that we have people out there that just want to go on a deer killing spree and just leave the carcasses. I would at least call some friends and be like, listen, you guys want some deer meat or something, man? Like, how you just going to leave them there? Vanetta told Cowboy State Daily. Okay, so during the pursuit of the suspect, game wardens found evidence including arrows, according to Karsten's affidavit. A silver Ford Fusion was allegedly used by the suspect, and wardens found an arrow inside the car. Wardens contacted the car's owner, who told him the vehicle was being used by Wellhauer, who was staying at the owner's residence. According to the affidavit, Wellhauer was arrested on warrant Monday, according to Cody. So what was this guy doing? I just don't get it. Like, was he testing out his new bow or what? What an idiot. Anyways, I just seen that as I was getting stuff ready for the show. But I want to get into some election stuff. So, big election news out of Pennsylvania that just dropped literally like 5 minutes ago. I want to get into this. This is a pretty big deal. So, the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, this is from votebeat.org. Let's see here. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to do this. This is new to me. It's trying to do it in this kind of platform, so you have to bear with me. So, VoteBeat, Pennsylvania, this came out today. Ruling against date requirement on ballots is voided by Pennsylvania Supreme Court. This is a big deal. And I'm sure Mark Elias is crapping his pants right about now, because that guy is something else, man. He's a Democrat slip and fall attorney. He's an election attorney that is always suing in states, always trying to rig elections for Democrats. He's awful. He's about as worse as they come. But he is smart as hell. Again, he's a typical Democrat. They may be evil, but they are very, very smart. They're like evil villains, man. So Pennsylvania's mail ballots must have a proper date on their envelopes or they will be rejected under a decision Friday by the state Supreme Court that could affect thousands of voters this November. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court vacated a Commonwealth Court ruling from August 30th that found that the state's requirement on ballot dating was an unconstitutional violation of voters' rights. So Republicans who appealed that decision argued to the state Supreme Court last week that plaintiffs failed to include all counties as parties to the case. Among other claims, the original suit brought by the ACLU and Public Interest Law Center on behalf of a coalition of voting rights groups targeted the Department of State, Allegheny County, and Philadelphia. The Supreme Court ruled on jurisdictional grounds, not on the merits of the underlying claim, meaning this argument could be made again, but I doubt it's going to be made before the election. Quote, the Commonwealth Court lacked subject matter jurisdiction to review this matter given the failure to name the county boards of elections of all 67 counties, the court wrote in its order Friday afternoon. The inclusion of Secretary of Commonwealth Al Schmidt as a named party was not enough to give the Commonwealth Court jurisdiction in the case, the order said. So earlier this summer, a coalition of civil rights groups represented by American Civil Liberties Union of Pennsylvania, among others, brought the case challenging the dating requirement under the Free and Equal Elections Clause of the state constitution. Like, can people just not put the dates on ballots? Like, this is the problem. This is the huge difference between Democrats and Republicans. Like, so Democrats think as long as a piece of paper is turned in, that's actually a legal vote. So whenever you hear them talk about count all votes, they never say count all legal votes. When they say count all ballots, they never say count all legal ballots because they don't care about the legality of it. They see ballots as just a piece of paper that's one more notch for their candidate. So you kind of run into problems when you have half of the country, a political party that does not want secure elections, that are in fact doing the opposite. They're trying to make our elections more unsecure, which it does what? Every single election is going to be called into question now. And they see this as winning. That is because the only thing on their mind is winning. They don't see it as, oh, will the other side think it was a fair and free election? They don't question the other side's wants or needs. They don't care, just so long as their side wins. Now, when they will care is when they lose. And we are most definitely going to see Democrats out in force trying to prevent Donald Trump from going into the White House. They're going to use the 14th Amendment. They're going to use the Insurrection Act. You're going to see Jamie Raskins, all the same players in the Democrat oligarchy coming out once again, just like in 2016, to try and remove a duly elected president. And remember, these people call themselves the defenders of democracy, but they actually have no clue what democracy actually stands for. All they care about is power. So it is the latest of several challenges to the dating requirement since the state implemented its Mail Voting Law Act 77 in 2020. This is one of the laws that they were using, okay, because of COVID. So you guys remember in 2020 when all of us were talking about these laws that were starting when Republicans and conservatives talk about Democrats rigging elections and how the 2020 election was rigged. They're talking about stuff just like this. It's not just machines. And so when the left says, oh, you have no evidence of that, this is one of those things. When you illegally and unconstitutionally change election laws weeks and months before an election, that, my friends, is called rigging an election. And we've seen this all across the key battleground states, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, Georgia. Mark Elias and Perkins Coie were going around changing election laws weeks and months before the election. When people see that and they see that their elections are being conducted in a abnormal fashion, is it shocking to them when the other side believes that the election wasn't on the up and up? Of course not. But again, Democrats don't care, man. They just want to win. So the Act 77 in 2020, Act 77 required voters to sign and date the outer return envelope of their mail ballots and return the ballot in a secrecy envelope in order for them to be counted. Again, why is it so hard for somebody to date the outer envelope of their ballot? To sign and date. I mean, it can't be that difficult, right? This is an election security measure. This is how you make sure you're not getting just a bunch of unsigned, undated ballots 5 days after the election, where you have ballot dumps in the middle of the night that are 99.9% all for Democrats. You want to alleviate the other side questioning the elections? You add security measures, like, I don't know, signing and dating the outer envelope. I mean, it's so simple, man. And this is why they absolutely need, Republicans need to put the SAVE Act in the CR bill that's coming up, and they better grow a spine. Mike Johnson, if you don't do anything, dude, which you haven't since you've been Speaker of the House, you better hold the ground on this, my friend. Because if not, I really, really wouldn't want to be you in your next election, my man. Because people are not going to be happy if you walk away from this election not doing anything in your power to secure it. Think about it. Mike Johnson hasn't really done anything extravagant. You know, and I was cheering to get rid of Kevin McCarthy because he is a swamp creature. He is part of the oligarchy. He's part of the deep state, part of the Washington establishment. So I was stoked to get rid of Kevin McCarthy. And to be honest, I was super excited with Mike Johnson. I think I did a whole show, like an hour show, dedicated to Mike Johnson, going through his past history, his voting record. He is extremely conservative. He is definitely MAGA. But I don't know, the guy, whoever he's surrounded with, are like a bunch of Kevin McCarthys. And from what I hear out of reporting and word on the street from Washington, D.C., is he is surrounded by a lot of Kevin McCarthy staffers. And if you want to know who's really running the country, it's these politicians, they're staffers. You know, each one has like a entourage of staffers that follow him around. You guys remember seeing that video of Nancy Pelosi? She had like 15 people following her, man. You had like one to hold her purse, one to hold her phone, one to like fix her wardrobe, like all this crazy stuff. And those are our tax dollars, by the way, paying for all that. These people act like they're celebrities, man. We treat them like celebrities, and it shouldn't be that way. I was rooting for Mike Johnson the entire time. I thought he was going to be a stellar Speaker of the House, but he turned out to be a dud, man. And I know he keeps using the excuse, oh, we just don't have the votes. We don't have the vote margin, all the typical excuses. But dude, like, go in there and just show the people you're fighting at least. But he's not. He's just, you know, playing the safe road as if this is the problem with Republicans. And I'm not saying Mike Johnson is a rhino or part of the oligarchy, because I truly don't think he is. I think he's just somebody that's getting advice from the wrong people. He's surrounded himself with bad people, a bunch of little Kevin McCarthys. So federal judges have gone back and forth over whether enforcing the requirement violated federal voting law. The current case is the first to directly challenge this requirement under the state constitution. The free and equal election clause says that, quote, elections shall be free and equal, and no power, civil or military, shall at any time interfere to prevent the free exercise of that right of suffrage. You mean like trying to remove a candidate off the ballot, like Donald Trump in Colorado? Or you mean like using lawfare to kneecap your political opponent so that you can go out on stage and call him a 34-time convicted felon? You mean like that kind of interference? To me, it sounds like there's a lot of people that are involved in this conspiracy to persecute Donald Trump by using the justice system. They should be investigated at the very least. And I said that on the last show. I think all of these people need to pay the political price. They, at the very least, need investigated. So in August, a majority of a 5-member panel of Commonwealth Court judges agreed with them, quote, the refusal to count undated or incorrectly dated but timely mail ballots submitted by otherwise eligible voters because of meaningless and inconsequential paperwork errors violates the fundamental right to vote recognized in the Free and Equal Elections Clause. See what I mean? This is how they do it. So you have a ballot, you don't have a signature, you don't have a date, you don't know when the ballot was submitted. Think about it. Let's read this guy's quote again. This was Judge Ellen Keisler in a 4-1 majority. This is one of the Supreme Court justices right here. You ready? The refusal to count undated or incorrectly dated but timely mail ballots. How do you know it's timely? Like, what does that mean? If somebody's handing you a ballot 2 days after the election and it doesn't have a date, you mean to tell me that's a timely ballot? No, it's not. So how can you count it? You can't. But this judge is saying you can. So the refusal to count undated or incorrectly dated but timely ballots submitted by otherwise eligible voters, how do you know they're eligible if there's no signature on the frickin' ballot? See, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, I mean, doesn't it make common sense? To me and you, it makes sense, right? So, like, how can this judge, and this is a judge, by the way, this is why our elections are collapsing, this is why our country's collapsing, this is why our society's collapsing and our country's collapsing, because of judges like this. They're not judges, they're political activists in black robes. So, submitted by otherwise eligible voters because of meaningless and inconsequential paperwork errors. So when a voter doesn't sign the outside of a ballot like they're required, or doesn't put a date on it like they're required, that is meaningless and inconsequential. How do we know it's even who it is that's sending in the ballot? Because once you open that envelope and you separate the ballot from the envelope, there's no way of tracking these things. And this is what we've been trying to say for the last 3.5 years. So when the left talks about, oh, well, where's your evidence? This is the evidence of rigging elections. This is how they do it. How can you prove a negative? How is somebody, it should be the opposite. They should have to prove that there wasn't any fraud. And if we had secure elections, it would be very easy for them to do that. You know, they used the whole talking point, oh, well, there was 5 recounts or 15 recounts. But if you're recounting the same fraudulent ballots, you know, the ballots with no signature, no date, that came in 5 days after the election, then you're just recounting all the fraudulent ballots. Of course you're going to get the same number. And this is what people have been trying to say this entire time. And trust me, it's not just here. There is 50 other instances just like this, where they kind of manipulate the language and the law in order to garner more votes. So Adam Bonin, a Philadelphia-based election lawyer who is not part of this case but has been involved in other lawsuits challenging the dating requirements, said this means that, barring another ruling, voters will need to write a date on their ballot return envelope in order for the ballot to be counted. Thousands of ballots are rejected each election for dating issues. During the April primary, counties rejected roughly 8,500 ballots, or 1.22% of those returned, for lacking a signature, date, or being returned without a secrecy envelope, according to an analysis of Pennsylvania Department of State data. More than 4,400 of those were rejected for dating issues. Bonin noted that the NAACP's challenge to the requirement under federal law could be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court and is also representing clients challenging the requirement in a separate case. This is a huge win to protect the vote in Pennsylvania that will protect common sense mail ballot safeguards and help voters cast their ballots with confidence. The Keystone State will be absolutely critical in this election, and the Supreme Court has decided a major victory for election integrity, RNC Chairman Michael Whatley said in a statement. The ACLU and Pennsylvania's Department of State did not immediately respond to requests for comment. I did not think they would. But again, why do you have one side that is trying to secure elections, making it safe, making it fair, making it transparent, and the other side is trying to dismantle the guardrails? So, like I said earlier, what we should be doing is putting in securities so that if there is challenges and there's doubt and there's skepticism, you can go back and prove to the people, look, there's no way this could have happened because we have this safeguard in, or this safeguard, or this law, or that law. That is how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be count every piece of paper until you get a win. It's supposed to count all legal votes. But they don't see it that way. If there's illegal aliens voting, that's a vote. Because the way they see it, and trust me, I know, I used to be a leftist Democrat. You all that have listened for a long time know that. Our mindset behind this was, if you live in this country, then you should have a say in how this country is ran. I guarantee you ask any leftist why they feel the way they feel about signatures on ballots and all that, that is the talking point they're going to give you. But it's wrong, folks. It is wrong. Okay, that is not how you conduct elections. That's not how any country conducts elections. And in fact, the United States is becoming pretty bad when it comes to our elections. Like, we're almost getting to a point where we're going to need, like, ink-stained fingers, like we seen in Afghanistan and Iraq when we conducted their elections. when we installed democracy after we conducted a coup against their country, and now they're using the same tools and tactics to thwart our democracy here in the United States. Same tools, same people, same bureaucracy. It's the same tactics are being used here at home. We talked about that on the last show. So anyways, that is good news for people that were wanting election security in Pennsylvania. This is good news because I highly doubt this is going to get raised to the Supreme Court of the United States before the election. It's almost not. It's not going to happen. I don't see that happening at all. But I want to get into, speaking of bad ideas from Democrats, I have this article right here. Tim Walz, this guy, you notice how nobody's actually digging into Tim Walz. Now, I know there's reporters, there's news outlets digging into him, but you notice how the media hardly ever talks about this guy. That should worry people the most. It is the guy that flies under the radar that turns out to be probably the worst. And I think Tim Walz is probably one of the most radical vice presidents this country's ever seen. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being hyperbolic. I think Tim Walz is more radical than Kamala Harris. And I'm going to explain to you why. So I didn't hear anybody talking about this. This is the first time I seen it, and I was shocked I didn't hear any news outlets discussing this. But this is actually kind of a big deal. So Walz's administration handed nearly $500,000 in taxpayer cash to left-wing legal group that demanded trans inmates move to women's prisons. This, ladies and gentlemen, is one of many, 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 many bad ideas from the left. Putting men in women's prisons. I can't think of anything more dumb than that. What these people are doing to women's rights, women's sports, women's privacy, women's health is a freaking disgrace. And for me, a man, to be talking about this is okay, but I'm kind of wondering, where are all the women on this? I know there's some of you women out there that are pushing back on this. My wife is one of them. But for real, why aren't all women in this country pushing back against this? Your sports are being ruined. Your prisons are being populated with men. It's like the women, all the women's suffrage movement, all the gains that women have made over the years is just gone. And it's being ruined by men. This is what's insane. So Tim Walz, a man, Joe Biden, a man, is destroying women's rights, Title IX, women's privacy, women's sports. It is incredible, man. But this is concerning. But it's not just Tim Walz. This is why I actually wanted to do this article. It's not just Tim Walz. This is the type of stuff that happens in all states, in the bureaucracy. So when the federal government and the Federal Reserve come together and they print $1 or $2.5 trillion of taxpayer money, causing our inflation and our money to shrink, right, and causing our money, devaluing our currency, it's for tricks just like this. It's these little groups, man, these little loopholes. This is how politicians go and broke and come out rich, is stuff just like this. So Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's administration allocated nearly $449,000 in taxpayer money to a left-wing legal nonprofit as part of an apparent sue and settlement plan that put the first transgender inmate in a state women's prison, the Post can exclusively reveal. So I'm kind of curious, $500,000? Who's making all this money? Who's writing the check, for one? And who is receiving this deposit of $449,000? Because that person right there needs to be investigated. If this is our money that is just being spent or given to nonprofit organizations for sue and settlement plans. This is the type of stuff we need to rid our government of. So we're in $35 trillion in debt. It's because of stuff just like this. So in 2023, the Democratic vice presidential nominee's office shelled out $448,904 to St. Paul-based Gender Justice 1 year after the nonprofit filed a sex discrimination complaint against Minnesota's Department of Corrections, according to a review of public records shared with the Post by the taxpayer watchdog group OpenTheBooks.com. OpenTheBooks.com is, I love that website. I think they're doing great work. Any taxpayer watchdog group, they should be getting like the most funding, but they don't. They get little to no funding. These people in these watchdog groups, they do all this stuff almost for free, but they're a concerned citizen. You know, all of them are concerned citizens that are trying to figure out, just like me, where all of our tax dollars are going. And so they do great work, but yet they are the ones that are least funded. All the other money goes to NGOs, to funnel illegal immigrants into the country by the millions, and nonprofit organizations that actually tend to make a lot of profit, like this, to left-wing legal nonprofits, like this one right here that's trying to get transgender men into women's prisons. So the complaint argued that the DOC was discriminating by housing of transgender inmate Christina Lusk in a men's prison and denying access to sex reassignment procedures, including a vaginoplasty. Vaginoplasty, I guess. What is that? I don't know. I can't even pronounce this stuff. This stuff's getting so weird, man. Lusk has received hormone therapy and pursued genital reconstructive surgery before being arrested in December 2019 and charged with meth possession, receiving a 5-year prison sentence. At the time, Lusk was already on conditional release following a 2012 DWI offense. Though the DOC initially moved to dismiss the suit and touted efforts to defend some of the most progressive transgender policies in the nation, unquote, the agency agreed to a whopping $495,000 settlement in May 2023 that entitled Lusk to $245,903 in cash meth possession. So I'm wondering, so is this a dude trying to be a chick, or is this a chick trying to be a dude? I think it is a dude trying to be a chick, because you notice how you never see anything, you never see women trying to be men. Like, you see it like in public, but it's like they're not trying to join men's sports. They're not trying to go to men's prisons. Like, I think this is so obvious that you have psychologically damaged men that are trying to be women, and they're getting over on the system. They're finding these loopholes so that, one, that we celebrate them, you know, us sane, rational people that don't think we're the opposite sex. And number two, they try and get money and lawsuits, and they just force their way in these positions so that the places like this prison now has to legally assign him, a biological man, to a women's prison, and there's nothing the women can do about it. This is disgusting, and this will not stop until when? Until enough women inmates come out either pregnant, either raped, and you know that these prisons are probably hiding all this stuff because they don't want to deal with the publicity, they don't want to deal with the press, and they don't want any negative press. So I can only imagine how many women are being raped and impregnated in prisons by dudes that are pretending to be women. This is disgusting, and I promise you, I will almost bet a year's worth of salary that this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. You're going to have an investigation or some type of watchdog group that's going to be releasing numbers from prisons all over the country with massive amounts of rape, massive amounts of women getting pregnant by men in prisons, and we're going to say, okay, yeah, maybe this was a bad idea. Once again, this is the unintended consequences of the leftists' bad ideas. And we're not going to get away with it. And we're not gonna be able to deal with it until we can just accept that these people's ideas are bad. They're radical, they're progressive, and they always end up hurting people. Period. This is why Democrats' ideas suck. But the party sucks so bad they have to adopt all these different factions from different groups, like the radical leftists, the socialists, the communists, the Marxists, the LGBTQ, the transgenders, the BLM, the pro-Hamas. They have to adopt all these different factions, or they would just keep losing every election. And they have to, along with adopting the faction of people, they have to adopt their ideas. And so this is what you get. You get a party that is extremely destructive to our culture, to our value system, to our history, to everything, really, everything America's about. The Democrat Party is the most destructive political party in this country's history, period, point blank. And it hasn't always been that way, but it is now. And that's why I left. That's why all these people are leaving. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. I see almost every single day another prominent Democrat leaving the party because this party has lost its way. It has lost its moral compass. It is like a rudderless ship getting bashed by waves of immorality. It really is. It doesn't know where it's going. It stands for everything and nothing at the same time. It is like in the movie Dark Knight, Harvey Dent saying, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself as the villain. That's the Democrat Party, man. So as of January 31st, I'm going to get back into this article because we still have a whole lot. We got quite a bit to get into because this is going to lead me into something else. I'm going to use this as a segue into our next topic, which revolves around more bad ideas from the Democrat Party. So as of January 31st, Lusk had been released from state custody and placed under supervision. Gender Justice had only received a paltry $1,500 from the Minnesota government in 2022, the year before the unprecedented litigation got underway. So the DOC, the Department of Corrections, in 2023 categorized the massive expenses as legal services paid to Gender Justice, and the cash to Lusk was marked as other operating costs paid to a non-taxable vendor, records show. And this is how these people become millionaires, with little loopholes like this. So Gender Justice got another $5,000 that year from the state's Office of Higher Education for help with general management of fiscal services. Open the Books believes that facts point to the case itself being a sue and settle where closed-door legal arbitration is used to change public policy without the approval of the legislator. Yeah, this has to be approved by the people, man. You can't just spend the taxpayers' money without their approval. So this is what Democrats in the House and Senate are doing as well. They spend taxpayers' money without going through congressional approval. Joe Biden has done this over and over again with money to Ukraine, with the student loan debt relief. It's like they think our money is their money. And so they just spend it whenever they want. They don't even have to ask the voters. They don't have to ask the taxpayers. It's incredible, man. The corruption is at an all-time high. So there's the table for Gender Justice. See, the whole thing is just weird, dude. This whole social contagion is weird and it's very destructive. So attorneys at Minneapolis-based Robbins Kaplan LLP, which partnered with Gender Justice on a lawsuit, got $51,000 in return of costs, had donated more than $22,000 to Walz's 2022 gubernatorial campaign, state campaign finance records show. Wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that a portion of this money went to Walz's 2022 gubernatorial campaign? So in other words, $22,000 of taxpayer cash went to Tim Walz's campaign? That is nuts. Let me read this again. So attorneys at Minneapolis-based Robbins Kaplan LLP, which partnered with Gender Justice, which is this little outfit here, on the lawsuit and got $51,096 in return for costs, and had donated more than $22,000 to Walz's 2022 gubernatorial campaign, state campaign. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's so crazy. So this is how our money ends up in the pockets of corrupt politicians and corrupt nonprofits and corrupt NGOs. It's just like this, man. A treasurer on Gender Justice's board also serves concurrently as the manager of adult mental health programs and services at the Minnesota Department of Human Services. Quote, in this instance, we have a nonprofit with ties to the administration and a law firm with 5 figures in donations to the Walz campaign on the same side of the table across from the Department of Corrections, said Open the Book spokesman Christopher Neefus. What? Holy See, this is, folks, I just want to remind people, this guy right here, he is the vice presidential candidate. And when he was governor in Minnesota, all this stuff was happening. He had to approve this money. So this guy is as corrupt as they come. He may look like the old man from the movie Up, But he is a very dirty, rotten politician, which would explain why his brother has come out and said, if you know what I know, you would not be voting for him. This is nuts. That has to be, someone's going to have to get some quotes from that brother of his, because that's going to be like an October surprise. So it's a closed circle of interests. By simply following the money in the state checkbook, we were able to paint taxpayers a much more detailed picture of these negotiations, he added. The funds paid as part of the settlement were funds appropriated to the Department of Corrections, a spokeswoman from the agency said in a statement. The commissioner of the Department of Corrections, with input from the agency's general counsel and attorneys from the general's office. This is sick, man. So Walz's office and gender justice, hang on. So the settlement negotiations are conducted by agency general counsel and the attorneys signed by the Office of Attorney General. I know this gets complicated, folks. You just have to bear with me. I'm trying to get to the root of this stuff. While the AG's office represents the agency and provides legal advice to the agency is responsible for making final settlement decisions that reflect the best interest of the state, the spokeswoman went on. The agency's policy determination is based on the requirement that the agency provide responsive and necessary medical care to incarcerated persons in custody, along with an analysis of emerging case law from legal actions brought against corrections agencies from across the nation. Walz's office and Gender Justice did not respond to the request for comment. The nonprofit said it was a, quote, proud and honored earlier this year to be one of the several groups invited to the White House South Lawn for a Pride Month celebration. Yeah, this is the same Pride celebration where you had the transgender dude shaking his fake tits on the White House lawn. Like, yeah, and they want to sit there and call Republicans and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance weird. These people are weird. This guy right here is weird. I can see it, man. He just looks like a very mean, creepy old man, dude. He looks like a chomo. I'm going to be honest. If you were to ask me to describe a pervert, I would probably describe somebody that looks like Tim Walz. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. I'm not calling Tim Walz a pervert, even though he probably is. But I'm just saying, if you were to have me draw one or describe somebody like a pervert driving around in a windowless white van, I would probably describe Tim Walz. I'm just going to say that. I don't know about you, but he reminds me of somebody that would be like a child abducting pervert. I'm sorry, he just does. He looks like that creepy old man that would be on like a murder mystery movie. So due to the Lusk settlement, World Professional Associates of Transgender Health standards of care will now be the norm in Minnesota for the treatment of inmates with gender dysphoria, and taxpayers will be left picking up the tab. Way to go, Tim Walz. The Biden administration successfully pressured WPATH in late 2021 into adopting transgender treatment guidelines that lowered the age limits for minors seeking sex reassignment surgeries. So for all the people that are getting ready to go pull the lever here in 6 weeks, I want you to remember stuff like this. What they are doing to children is evil. They are chomping the private parts off of kids. Ladies and gentlemen, they are mutilating children. This guy right here, signing bills, creating laws that are allowing children to be mutilated and their private parts chopped off. What the hell have we gotten ourselves into? We are going into bizarro world. Not we're going into, we are there. Like, we are there, and it is not pretty. So an explosive report published in March by independent journalist Michael Schellenberger, he is good, used to be a leftist Democrat just like me, also pulled the curtain back on WPATH, downplaying the dangers of the gender modifications, including loss of bone density and infertility. Many Western European nations have already banned the procedures and associated hormone therapies for minors, but the U.S. government still relies on WPATH for guidelines in treating gender dysphoria. This is insane. I would go into the rest of this, but so in other words, Tim Walz is not just a pervert, but he's a corrupt pervert at that. All right, so moving on, that gets me into, and the pervert's not the segue into my next article. It is the corruption. Well, not just the corruption, but this kind of this habit of very, very bad ideas coming from Democrats. I wanted to get into California. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. California has become the number one exporter of bad ideas in this country. Our country has become the number one exporter of bad ideas around the world. Democrats want to turn America into California. And I'm reading through all the bills and propositions that were passed in California for the last maybe couple decades. And I'm starting to notice a pattern. All the bills, all the radical propositions and bills that were passed in California are all ideas that Democrats want to implement in America today. Democrats in Congress. I'm looking at these bills, I'm like, well, why? Well, this looks a lot like something Democrats would support. Wow, this looks like a lot what Democrats want, to $198,000 in attorney's fees and costs. Lusk was ordered to be transferred to a women's facility in Shakopee, southwest of Minneapolis, and promised full reimbursement pending a medical evaluation approval from a medical insurance provider for vaginoplasty and breast revision procedures, even after the end of Lusk's incarceration period if necessary, per the settlement. So there you go. There is this transgender. Christina Lusk had received hormone therapy and pursued a genital reconstructive surgery before being made. All about the defunding police, the overtaxation of individuals, the overtaxation of corporations, all of it. So I started going into the homelessness crisis because they created the cost of living is so high in California you can't afford a home. So what do? You get a bunch of homeless people. So I asked ChatGPT, what are some of the most controversial and damaging policies that California has implemented over the past 10 years or so? And this is what it gave me. You ready for this? Proposition 47 is number one. 2014. And this one you probably will recall. So as mentioned earlier, Proposition 47 reclassified certain nonviolent crimes such as theft under $950 from felonies to misdemeanors. Critics argue that this law contributed to the rise in petty theft, shoplifting, and other property crimes because offenders face less severe consequences. Police departments have noted that criminals exploit the $950 limit, repeatedly committing theft, knowing they will not face felony charges. That law came from California, and it sounds a whole lot like what Democrats want for the rest of the country. Like, I don't know, defund the police movement that they started, probably one of the dumbest movements this country's ever seen. Certainly the dumbest talking point, other than walls don't work. That's pretty dumb. I bet those people look pretty dumb now, don't they? Now that their candidate wants to build a wall now? What do they have to say about that? Moving on, by the way, Proposition 47 was Kamala Harris's bill. She was heavily involved in Proposition 47. I don't think she may have sponsored it, but she certainly was involved with Proposition 47. In fact, I'll go ahead. So Kamala Harris, while serving as Attorney General of California, supported Prop 47, a bill passed by California in 2014 that including theft and drug possession from felonies to misdemeanors if the value involved was less than $950. So these are drug possessions too. This isn't just shoplifting. This is drug possessions down to misdemeanors as well. This is why you have people passed out on the street with needles hanging out of their arms. You have things like Skid Row, which Newsom just cleaned up because it's election time. See what I mean? These people are so scummy, man. But I'm going to continue on with the rest of these propositions so that I can prove to you California is the number one exporter of bad ideas in America, and Democrats want to turn America into California. So next up, you have Prop 57, aimed to reduce the prison population by allowing the early parole of nonviolent offenders and providing incentives for good behavior. While intended to reduce overcrowding, critics claim that it has led to the release of inmates who pose a risk to public safety, as the definition of nonviolent under the law includes offenses like assault with a deadly weapon, domestic violence, and human trafficking. You've got to be shitting me. You mean to tell me assault with a deadly weapon, domestic violence, and human trafficking is a misdemeanor now in California? This is what they want for America, folks. This is how radical these people are. So here we go. I don't know where number 3 is. It just went from, it just skipped over 3 and 4. Anyways, number 5, the homelessness policies and housing costs. California has been heavily criticized for its handling of the homelessness crisis. The state's policies, such as rent control measures and regulations on new housing developments, are viewed by critics as contributing to skyrocketing housing costs, which are a major factor in the homelessness problem. Efforts to build affordable housing have been slow due to environmental regulations like the California Environmental Equality Act, CEQA, which makes new construction expensive and time-consuming. While the intent is to protect the environment, it has inadvertently led to housing shortages. Again, the unintended consequences of Democrats' bad ideas. Number 6, zero bail policies. During the COVID-19 pandemic, California implemented a zero bail policy for many misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies in an effort to reduce the jail population and prevent the spread of the virus. While temporary, this policy was criticized for leading to the release of offenders without requiring bail, and some law enforcement officials argued it contributed to the higher crime rates during the pandemic. Oh yeah, that reminds me, by the way, the crime statistic that Kamala gave during the debate was a flat lie. It was literal misinformation, because the report the FBI was giving was a report that did not include the highest populated cities with the highest crime rates. I mean, it's so in-your-face corrupt when they do these things. So they went and said, hey, we need a crime statistic that's lower so that I can lie to the American people and tell them that crime is actually declining. So the FBI goes in and says, oh, I know. Well, we just won't include the very crime-ridden cities in the country. And then there you go. You have a statistic that's lower. And so there you go. You actually have a statistics that's showing that crime rates are actually declining when, in fact, they're increasing. Because you didn't include the major populated cities with the highest crime rates. This is how these people lie and manipulate their own citizens, man. And it pisses me off. The American people need the truth. They deserve the truth. And they can handle it. They can freaking handle it, man. Give the people the damn truth so that they can get it together and start taking care of the issue. But just continuing to lie to them so you can keep and regain power, when does it stop, folks? Do people actually think the Democrats are going to stop with their insanity if they just win this election? It's not going to stop. They have crossed the Rubicon over and over and over again. The Democrat Party has led us into one crisis after another. Constitutional crisis. And it's not going to stop if they win this election. It's just not. So, you know, they have their voters think, oh, we just have to win this election and prevent Donald Trump from winning, and then it's going to go back to normal. It's not going to go back to normal. They're using these tactics to keep and regain power, and they're going to do it the next election and the next election and the next election. It's never going to stop. You think Trump voters are just all of a sudden going to stop voting? They're going to stop wanting their country back? They're going to stop wanting secure borders? They're going to stop wanting secure elections? It's so dumb that the way that these people think, man. So anyways, I could go on. High taxes and regulations. California's high taxes, particularly on income and businesses, have been a constant source of controversy. Many argue that the state's policies combined with stringent regulations on businesses have driven companies and residents to leave for lower tax states like Texas and Florida. This I can prove because I live here in Florida, and I have never seen so many people in my life move to just my town in the past year. Since COVID, the last 3 years has been insane. I mean, the people are moving down here so fast, they can't even build the infrastructure fast enough. The traffic is off the chain. In the mornings, it's like gridlocked. And you're talking about a town that was small enough to where like people would wave to one another driving down the street. Now it looks like freaking South Beach, Miami here. And it's so annoying, man. There's nothing more I can't stand than traffic. And when we moved here, it was not like that. That was one of the drawing points to this town. It was small. It wasn't small, but it wasn't so densely populated because we had just come from Coconut Creek, Florida, which was extremely populated. It was like Fort Lauderdale. And we didn't want to do that anymore. So we came up north. We drive an hour to work now. And now our small town of Port St. Lucie is starting to look like South Beach, Miami. And it's all because these states like New York, California, just go down the list. New York, California, all these blue states, people are fleeing in droves. They don't want to be there anymore, man. And so where do they go? They go to red states. And then the stupid thing is they bring their stupid politics down and they vote for the same stuff. They're literally like a cancer. They spread like a cancer. Their ideas spread like a cancer. They just go from one state to another, just leaving a path, a wake of destruction everywhere they go. So anyways, I thought you guys wanted to hear about the Tim Walz story. This guy, I'm telling you, this guy is not who people think he is. This man right here is a very, very radical dude. I have to say, I think he may be more radical and progressive than Kamala Harris. This is why they picked him. You want to know why? It's not just because Josh Shapiro was a Jew, but because this guy gives off the appearance that he's just like this nice, neighborly old man from down the street that wears camouflage and looks and talks just like you. But this man is actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. And he looks just like it. The Kamala Harris and Tim Walz campaign is nothing but a campaign of lies and deception. We've never seen anything like this before. We've never seen a campaign hiding from interviews, hiding from the public. They do these scripted rallies, a completely choreographed debate that was staged from the moment that they started practicing for it to the moment the moderator said goodnight. The entire damn thing was choreographed to a point to where Kamala Harris had an actor come in and dress up like Donald Trump and act like Donald Trump. For 5 days, Kamala Harris was preparing for that debate. This guy right here, ladies and gentlemen, danger, danger, danger. This guy, I think, has a lot of skeletons in his closet, man. And I think we're going to find more and more about Tim Walz in the coming days and weeks. I can only imagine what the Trump campaign's October surprise is going to be. I can't even begin to imagine. Democrats aren't going to have an October surprise because every single day with Democrats is an October surprise. Between arresting their political opponents to, setting up false Russia collusion hoaxes, all the way to raiding his home, like every day with Democrats is an October surprise. They have crossed the Rubicon like 15,000 times. They have broken all constitutional norms, pretty much have done everything that they accuse their opponents of doing, like real life fascists. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I didn't do that too quick. I hope this actually worked out for you with me going through the articles like this. If you prefer this type of video, if you think I should keep doing videos like this where I scroll with the article and I show you the headlines so that you can read with me, then let me know. Send me an email, steventorielloshow@gmail.com. I don't mind doing it this way. It's a little bit more difficult because I got to, instead of just reading the show prep and printing it, I have to actually pull it up on the computer, but it's no big deal. For you guys, I'll do anything. I have the best audience in podcasting, in content creating. You guys are the best. You always are so involved in what's going on. True patriots, true heroes for this country. Like we're just a bunch of Paul Reveres, man. That's what we are. We're like modern day Paul Reveres. That's what we are. And so if you like it, where I do the show like this, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section, or send me an email, steventorielloshow@gmail.com. I will get back with you. I promise. I always get back with the people that email me. And you can email me anything you want. You want to just send me an email to see what I'm doing. Send me an email if you got a lead or you just want to shoot the breeze. Just let me know. Send me an email. I will respond back. And yeah, just let me know how you like this style of video, and we will continue doing it. Or if you want to go back to the old way where it's just me on a screen and I pull up photos and videos, we'll do it that way too. We'll figure it out, man. We're getting it done. We got a big, folks, every single day is something, it's going to be insane. And we're not, I can't, how many days are we out from the election? 60 days? 60 days? 50 days? I don't know. If you listen to the last episode, we talked about how Kamala Harris's Potemkin village is falling apart. And the undecided voters, they're not buying it, man. And in fact, Donald Trump was in California today. Speaking of California, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. He was in Los Angeles doing a rally today. This guy is a machine. That's why I'm telling you, there is nobody that can close on an election like Donald Trump. The guy is like Babe Ruth, man, when it comes to campaigning. He is the ultimate clutch campaigner. He is the guy you want in your corner. He is the guy you want in your foxhole. This Donald Trump is the guy to win this election. Because he's a machine, man. He's a freaking machine. And I told you on the last episode, he is not going to do a second debate with Kamala Harris. And I do not blame him for that. But, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great weekend. TGIF. Again, if you want to get a hold of me, StevenTorrielloShow@gmail.com, or leave a comment in the comment section and smash that like button. But most of all, share the show with your friends and family. That helps out the most. I don't ask for money from anybody. All I ask is that you share the show with your friends and family, because I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for my country. If our country wasn't going down the shitter and it wasn't going in a direction that I thought was bad, I wouldn't even be here. But duty calls, ladies and gentlemen. When called to duty, I must report. So I hope you guys like the show. I want you guys to have a good day. TGIF, have a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys here in a little bit. God bless you. God bless America. And long live the Republic. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.